The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by ButtKicker, are ready to race.
If 2021 was the year of Adam Blocker, 2022 has been the year of Philip Kraus. With 5 wins in 6 races, Kraus has become the man to beat in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. His lead in the championship is already a staggering 128 points. And even though the season has not even yet reached the halfway marker, it is hard to imagine anyone derailing the Kraus train. His journey to a championship today heads to a fast and flowing challenge in upstate New York. This is Watkins Glen, and this is the ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins Glen, presented by SimRace247.com. Hello everyone, and welcome back to RaceBot TV for coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted as always to be joined by the one and only Justin Prince as we get set for this round 7 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by ButtKicker. Let's dive straight into our ButtKicker pre-race show because it's all about Phil Kraus as he tries to tie Adam Blocker's record of 5 wins on the trot. It's been a staggering start to the season, a season that we thought impossible after what we saw from Adam Blocker last year, but Phil Kraus' worst performance of the season so far, JP, has been a second place finish that came on the streets of Long Beach as we take a look at the next level racing schedule. Today, a chance to tie history, and a week from now, if things go well today, Kraus is in the best place possible to steal a record away from Adam Blocker that seems somewhat unassailable.
It's been an incredible journey so far when it comes to Kraus and his performance so far. Right from the get-go, this season seems to be very different in terms of how he's been able to pace himself compared to his starts from 2021. He's been able to hit the ground running, and not only has he picked up momentum, he hasn't faltered that momentum really all season, and that's been the critical thing. That was an impact on his road course appearances last season, where he was good on the road courses, but it came down to execution. He's cleaned up the execution, and that's been huge at every single type of racetrack. The mile-and-a-half circuits, the tight confines of the street circuits like Long Beach, the bigger and sweepier and quicker circuits like Silverstone, and don't forget about the unique tracks like Pocono and Nashville we've seen. All of this as well, it builds up to what's expected to be a busy next few weeks, whether it's here at the Glen, whether it's at Phoenix, or whether it's the trip to the Triple Crown at Indy in just about a month's time.
And of course, while we look at that trip to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the end of June, all eyes focused on the Speedway this weekend, not just for the qualifying for the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500, but of course the iRacing Indy 500, the 13th running of that historic race, is this weekend, this Saturday. Qualifying for that is a week-long grind that many of these drivers, including Phil Kraus, have been focused on throughout the week so far, and indeed they will be focused on that through Friday. Here's a look at the point standing. 128 points clear in these ButtKicker drivers' standings is Phil Kraus from Alexander Van der Sant. A tie for 5th with Adam Blocker and Caleb Benzie. What a start to the season it's been for the team race first driver. Only 1 point splits Connor Harrington and Jason Brophy. It's been a great start to the season for Jason Brophy. But when you look at these championship standings, one team name stands out to you. It's the private label Team Hype, and the domination of the HyperX team standings that has gone now for over 15 months continues to reign on. They are now more than 200 points clear of Powerslide Adrenaline. And while Phil Kraus has been the man to beat, private label Team Hype are being backed up by those performances by Brophy and Harrington.
It's been an incredible season, to say the least. It's been an incredible past few months, as you hit upon, but it's very difficult to try and break that up when you have 3 very quick drivers on every oval you take them to, and you have Harrington and Kraus as contenders each time out the series goes to a road course race. The main trouble spot has been Brophy on the road courses, but even he's been picking up speed as of late and starting to minimize his mistakes. Although he's at the bottom of the practice charts for today's action, I'm expecting some bigger things when it comes to that neon yellow machine. Powerslide needs to get the consistency down at the same token though, because they've had some bumps of their own amongst all this craziness, and amongst trying to battle it out with teams like MadWorks, who look to try and build up a bit of momentum after some of the crashes as of late.
We'll talk more about MadWorks Motorsports, I'm sure, over the course of today's race. Here's a look at your ButtKicker rookie standings, and well, Phil Kraus at the front of the driver standings, Phil Kraus at the front of the rookie standings as well. Van der Sant Bensi behind him, and maybe somewhat surprising given Malechka's dominance in the Speedway Series in 2021 that he's only down in 4th position. Marquez, Newsom, Riggs have also been ultra impressive to start off the season. The one surprising name to be back down in 9th position is Adriano Pinheiro. 2 pole positions to start off the season. He was unable to convert those, though, to good points finishes, and Pinheiro is languishing down in 9th, JP.
I would compare that to what we've seen from Michael Goodman from the Speedway Series in particular, where it's been quick from the get-go in qualifying, good starting positions, but it's been mainly the execution, whether it's the time of the pit stops, whether it's entering the pit lane in of itself, whether it's staying out of collisions that end up putting drivers like Pinheiro, like a Goodman, behind the 8 ball the rest of the way. It's been a bit surprising to say the very least. A bit surprising too, I would say Lexus Newsom. Expecting big things from Newsom on the speedways. It's not been that good of his campaign though. 6th in the rookie standings. Top 10 give her credit though for the overall standings.
And with that said, let's dive into our series details presented by Gomez Sim Industry. It's Season 10 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series and Year 9 of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're campaigning the newest American open-wheel machine, the Dallara IR18, with a custom fixed setup built by Andrew Kinsella. Drivers have the ability to tinker with the front and rear anti-roll bars on the road courses. When it comes to the ovals, they get the weight jacker as well. Prize money is leapt up from just over $7,000 in 2021 to more than $10,000 in cash and prizes for 2022. Our series champion will also win Gomez Sim Industries Formula Pro Elite Rim, as well as a Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit. One Triple Crown down, we're lurking closer and closer towards the 2nd at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and everyone is trying to chase, or was trying to chase, Adam Blocker. Now the man in their sights is Phil Kraus, and the team champions currently leading the way as well. Let's talk to you though about your Moser Racing event details as the series takes a trip up to upstate New York for the 9th time in series history. Sage Karam's streak of 3 wins in a row will come to a close today, and if Adam Blocker does not win, we are guaranteed a new winner in HyperX Victory Lane here at the Watkins Glen International Raceway. Drivers starting on the front row of the grid have won every single race in series history. Only twice previously has 2nd place won. Pole position is very much a good indication, but interestingly, JP, when you think about that stat, only once has the driver that has led the most laps not entered HyperX Victory Lane. The key that we see here today, track position, will be important.
Track position's important, making sure you maintain a clean qualifying lap, absolutely important to be able to make sure you're that driver who comes away in victory lane, because clean air is critical when it comes to the Dallara IR18 on a road course, as we've seen throughout the campaign. But the major difference from last year compared to the times of Sage Karam's dominance on the road courses in this series and its history, the tire compounds. Because last year, around this time, it was more so the red wall tire, which was the dominant tire. That has flipped, as we've seen throughout the year, to the tune where before drivers were avoiding the black wall tires. This time, they're trying to avoid the red wall tires, and that may be critical here today, a part of that potential swap around for the driver who makes it to HyperX Victory Lane today.
The other thing that has changed significantly since our trip here in 2021 is the configuration that we'll be racing at today. Gone is the inner loop, or the bus stop as it's commonly known as, instead of the fast, tricky chicane where you flick the car right, left, and then back to the right on the run up the long sweeping hill. Instead now we'll go straight into the outer loop. Higher speeds, higher opportunities for the push-to-pass to come into play, JP. It'll be very interesting as well if people are able to defend well, because even if you get alongside on the entry to the corner, as you set yourself up down the hill into the carousel, there is an opportunity to hold off that car trying to make a pass happen.
Yeah, it gives a bit more of an opportunity for a push-to-pass to be used if you want to make the attack try and work, but the tough thing you mentioned right there is the defensive line, because most likely the driver who is up in front of you is taking that preferred line for the outer loop up to the carousel, all the way towards the laces. And that in turn will make it extremely difficult to make the pass fully complete itself. unless you get very close to the driver in front of you and they don't use a push to defend, so to speak, it will be difficult to try and make that backstretch work still, but it gives that extra bit of opportunity. In turn, how will the drivers handle side by side through the outer loop? We've seen even with the bus stop how dangerous that section of the racetrack can be with how many mistakes that usually pop up coming out towards the carousel portion of the rumble strips.
It's a significant climb up the hill through the S's as we're taking a look right now. It's a 70-meter climb, or just over 70 feet climb, or 20 meters. A total elevation change here is just over 100 feet, or 30 meters in total. I had to get myself flicked around there. I've always had my struggles with units, as I am a dirty user of metric, as we're getting ready for qualifying to work itself underway. 10 minutes on the clock. Drivers get 4 laps and the track to themselves. Usually what we see is lap 1, you go and do a fast lap. Lap 2 and 3 are burned as you reset to pit road. You get some fresh boots on your car to make sure you've got the maximum grip from these red-walled alternate compound tires. Slightly softer, slightly grippier, but in the conditions that we're going to see today, they will very much give up the ghost in very short order. The margins right now are ultra fine. Half a second splits the top 14 cars. At the top right now, though, is Ryan Otis, as he's on pit road. Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin second and third. Adam Blocker jumps up to second, and this is a crucial race to talk about when it comes to Adam Blocker. Obviously, he's trackside this weekend, the NTT IndyCar Series, getting ready for the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500. Adam Blocker is Callum Eilot's and Junkos Hollinger's racing engine engineer. Yes, that's a mouthful as Phil Kraus goes to the top, but Adam Blocker racing from fellow Lionheart competitors Jim Herrick's rig. We've seen him struggle when he's been racing from hotel rooms in the past. He'll be glad that he's got a solid foundation to build off of. Jim Herrick's got a solid rig as well as a direct drive wheel and some good pedals, and that's why Blocker is currently sitting up in third.
Yeah, Blocker looking strong to start off qualifying. Up note, Phil Kraus, though, is at the top of the board now after his second lap. So that's the tough mark to try and keep up with. We also see one of the drivers who's running part-time this season, Joshua Chin, back for tonight. A little bit of drifty drift, still in the top 5 on the board. Check that. Matt Taylor, one of those MadWorks cars, jumps up as Joshua Chin throws it away.
It was already thrown away, though, if we're being completely honest. So that's lap done for Josh Chin. Might be qualifying done with 2 odd minutes left. Time is winding down for these drivers to be able to roll out onto track and finish their qualifying lap in time. We're watching as the number 20, Chris Fowler, MadWorks Motorsport machine that currently sits in 13th, rolls his way through. Rob Malechka jumps up into 10th position. And I talk about the iRacing Indy 500 plenty, and we're going to talk about it through the course of the race as well. For the likes of Phil Kraus, Connor Harrington, even Josh Chin, Alexis Newsom, Alexander Van der Sande, as well as Robert Malechka, their eyes very much focused on that, and it is a grind. I can attest to that myself. The setup that you start with in qualifying as Bommersbach goes up to 6th on Monday night when the qualifying sessions open is not the setup that you're likely going to have when qualifying finishes on Friday evening. Join us on Friday evening here on RaceSpot TV for final session qualifying coverage as we get our grid set for the race. Chris Fowler works his way through. Looks like Ryan Otis already on a bit of a good lap as he works himself through the final couple of corners of the regular portion, at least that NASCAR would use. Chris Fowler with a 26.486, no improvement for him. And we talk about the tires, we'll talk about them more, JP. The thing that we're expecting is for the fall off to be very, very significant on these alternate tires. The black primary compound likely where we'll see many of these drivers start the race.
We're talking about this in fair bits of depth as a result of the reds versus blacks in terms of the tire compound where this season. The Reds expected to last maybe 4 laps with the amount of fall-off that's expected. You mentioned the hot conditions. It's extremely hot for Watkins, Glen, here on iRacing Day, May 15, 2022. More than 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Those tires are frying like eggs around the circuit. And with 30 seconds to go here in this qualifying session, vast majority of the field looking to solidify the track position, but look at the top of the board.
Alexander Van der Sande by 2,000ths has jumped to the front. Brian Carey's gone third. The Canadian finally with some luck in this 2022 season. But can Phil Kraus play party spoiler with 15 seconds left? A 25.946 to beat. He goes back to the front. The margin 9/30 thousandths of a second. Oh my word, JP, we're in for a treat.
You like busy qualifying sessions? You just had one with 3 drivers finding it out towards the top of the board in the final 15 to 20 seconds. But all the competitors, I believe, are going to have a handful, especially the run not just up to the 90, but up that hillside through the S's for the back straightaway for the first time in race pace, Arjuna.
Let's get set to go racing here in upstate New York. Let's dial up our ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins Glen presented by SimRace247 starting grid. Here is a look at your ButtKicker starting grid. A 125.935, good enough to net pole position for Phil Kraus, his 4th in series history. Alexander Van der Sant will roll off alongside. Watch for the pace of the number 96 machine. Has looked very impressive throughout the course of the practice sessions. Brian Carey, where did that lap come from? The 79 will line up inside of Ryan Otis, who's been very much impressing in 2022. Matt Taylor and Adam Blocker will share row number 3. Back in 7th, it's Connor Harrington. A 10th splitting the top 8. Kite Bombers back on the outside of row number 4. Through the top 10, it's Joshua Chin and Alexis Newsom. Great qualifying for your 2021 Speedway Series champion, showing some speed on the ovals. On the road courses, excuse me. Adam Fraser, Robert Malechka roll 11th and 12th positions, while Adriano Pinheiro and Aaron Morgan split themselves on row 7. 15th goes to Tyler Graff, Chris Fowler on his outside, and then Madworks Motorsports, number 20. Brian Beard and Dustin Wardlow, 17th and 18th position with half a second through the top 18. Marquez and Rolf complete the top 20. Stefan Larkamp from 21st will share row 11 with Caleb Bensi, James Brandt, and Andrew Kinsella. Another disappointing qualifying for the Canadian, back in 24th position. Alex Guyon, Matthias Kraus, Jason Brophy, Mitchell Riggs, the next couple of cars with Matt Houston, and AJ Musselman through the top 30. Chris Lanini and Tony Shaw in 31st and 32nd, while Paul Jenkins and Joe Branch are the 2 final cars with lap times on the board. Luis Gonzalez Nunez 31st, and Lionel Calisto, an end-of-line penalty to serve, will drop behind Mike Rigney. 37 cars in our field here today. We've got a full pace lap to talk about the race, and of course when it comes to a race like this, fuel mileage might just prove to be very, very vital. Let's not dawdle though, let's get to the action at hand, and let's start by running you down through today's featured onboard cameras. Starting with the Graphics Esports Longboard. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
Today with the HyperX on board, it's Matthias Kraus. Whenever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
The Candyman Dustin Wardlow carries the Dewar's Candy on board, world's best taffy since 1909. Visit dewarscandy.com.
And the reason you see the ButtKicker on board with Matt Taylor in the pit lane, we'll get to in a moment. Sim racing is better with ButtKicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. And here is a wrinkle to start things off for Arjuna. Taylor with a technical issue right off the starting blocks. Contact with Harrington before they got rolling on the pace lap.
We'll see if we can grab a replay of what happened there, but that is dramatic and not how, for Matt Taylor, who qualified up there in 5th position, he would have wanted to start this race. He's going to be slightly frustrated, I have no doubt about that. Let's grab a look at that RaceSpot TV replay and let's see what happens here. So you can see they're on the grid, they're getting ready to roll. The first couple of rows go. Matt Taylor does not. Now what does Connor Harrington do, and how does this all escalate into Matt Taylor on pit lane? Of course you can see he's got some sort of hardware failure that is stopping him from being able to roll. Connor Harrington eventually ups and tries to go and clips the back of Matt Taylor, and that might just be a little front wing damage that Connor Harrington has to nurse in the early stages of this race.
Doesn't look too much visually, at least on Connor Harrington's car, but absolute disaster for Matt Taylor. He's been quick throughout the campaign, he's been improving on the road courses, one of his best qualifying performances on a road course this year so far. And then you have that happen. You just don't expect that to happen to you. And 37 car grid, that is absolutely catastrophic.
He'll start from pit lane, hopefully, assuming he can get those issues sorted in time. He's got a full pace lap, so never say never. There might be that opportunity for him to roll himself back out onto track, albeit all the way down in the field. Prediction time, JP. Who's coming out on top here today?
Well, it's hard to predict against Philip Kraus because he's been the hot hand when it comes to not just the series in general, but the road courses. Or before the dominating streak, it was him and Blocker as the contenders. He's got good track position. I like Kraus's chances. But don't count out Van de Sande. Remember, in official action with you in the IndyCar Open Series, he's been amongst the favorites on some of the road courses this year in the 96.
I definitely think Van de Sande is not to be trifled with, but I think Kraus's road to make it 5 wins on the bounce to tie the record of Adam Blocker in 2021, that pathway is very much open. He's got the field in his control. We're ready to go racing for the ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins Glen, presented by SimRace247.com. Green flag flies. We're underway here in Watkins Glen. A great start from Connor Harrington. Brian Carey getting slightly swarmed on the run down into turn number 1. Kraus leads the way side by side for second as Van de Sande tries to hold off the charge from Connor Harrington, Van de Sande uses the push to pass. He should be able to fend off that challenge for now. It's all about the momentum in toward the outer loop.
Van de Sande did not get a good launch whatsoever, it seemed. Harrington's getting turned!
And that has caused absolute chaos. Adam Blocker's been mixed up in that. The iRacing gods made just a smile down on him, but we managed to get through that, I think, for the most part safely. 2 NHR Esports machines getting mixed up. Marquez and Larkamp looks like the Candyman, and AJ Musselman involved as well. Chaos and carnage. I did wonder what the removal of the bus stop chicane was going to have do to us. Yellow flag flies. We're under caution here at Watkins Glen.
Mostly safe is an understatement for some. That was a 10-car pileup for the first run down the back straightaway. Unbelievable, to say the very least. And for Harrington, tempers have to be flaring in that pit lane. One of the top drivers expected to be competing up at the front tonight. Him and Brian Carey make tire-to-tire contact, Arjuna, it seems, and it causes calamity. Gonzalez Nunez, Wardlow, Marquez, Larkamp, who is among those looking to approach the 1,100 start club, Jay Brandt, all demolished before we end the first lap.
Let's see if we can grab a look at what happened then, and we'll slow it down, take a look at our RaceBot TV replay. We're going to have to jump a little bit further back. We'll get a look at the start, and we'll focus on what happens with Connor Harrington. So it was a good launch for him as he tried to make it 3 wide on the run into turn 1. Now, crucially, out of the 90, he does not use a push to pass. Now, I wonder if maybe he's going to rue that. He would have had the opportunity to clear on Alexander Van de Sande. Brian Carey did use one of his push to passes, and from here, it's when things got interesting. We take a look from up above. We watch as the Canadian gets an almighty toe, and he tries to pinch, and now we get the views being obstructed by the tree, so he missed all the fun there. Now watch, though, in the aftermath of what goes on here. Harrington comes across the track. The Candyman gets mixed up. The 2 NHR Esport cars get mixed up. I think Tony Showing got involved as well. Talk about chaos. That is utter carnage.
Now taking our glance right here, you see just that little close moment. That bobble right to the right rear tire in the left front. Now have to pin him around there. And just a little bit of a maybe thought of the defensive move, realized it towards the middle portion of the moment, that it wasn't going to work there. They just get that touch bit too close with the one bobble, and it's enough to disable Harrington's car. Some good moves from Otis and company to avoid, but after that mark, Harrington, when he hits the second time against the Armco, even with the brakes locked, nowhere really for some of the drivers to go. Right in the heart of the racetrack. You're just holding on from that point.
That was a hellacious bit of contact there. We'll try and grab a couple more looks at it. We get the puffs of smoke. Let's see who else. Jay Brandt, I think, got mixed up in that one. Luis Gonzalez Nunez as well. There's the car rolling back across the track. Now, there is Larkamp up in the air. You can see he gets mixed up with his teammate as well in that Alcantech NHR Esports camp. Let's ride on board with Jay Brandt then. Well, he actually got involved in something separate, so we missed that. And is that a self-mistake?
Oh, and that's through the S's up the hillside, in fact, side by side to the back of the pack to add to all this.
Oh, he gets loose.
And yeah, looked like he was thinking maybe 3 wide for a moment, then caused him to step out a little bit as he was trying to settle it out. Thankfully to the inside, but then you have everybody else who sees that first incident trying to get things settled out, and then you have Nunez. He checks up. Well,
I'm going to be a little bit harsh there and say that he had plenty of time. We'll get another look on board with him. He had enough time. You can see there's the car stuck to the left.
Yeah.
Sorry, Luis, but that other car was already completely total. Let's be completely honest there.
Yeah.
It's not like he had much to do with that car having issues, but heads up driving, that was not. Let's have a look at what happened to the muscle man.
Well, in the situation when it comes to Nunez, remember when drivers are taught how to drive, and including Musselman's incidents here too, one of the major things is when you're trying to get through a skid trying to avoid an accident, don't look directly at the car in front for the accident, because you get that tunnel vision and you turn in directly to the path of the accident. It seemed for a couple of the drivers that's exactly what they did, almost where they were seeing, okay, I've got trouble ahead, I've got to back it down, but then they don't realize until the last moment, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to turn to avoid all this too.
Something in the air in Watkins Glen, I tell you, because the Lionheart Retro Series race that we had earlier this season, or earlier this year, I should say, in Watkins Glen also had a caution throw. Now, I'm not sure if that was a admin-triggered caution or if that was an automatic caution, but you do see a couple of cars to pit road, Jason Brophy amongst them. Jason Brophy started on the black mark primary tire. Only a couple of cars gambled with the reds, Caleb Bency as well as Matt Houston. This plays into their hands massively, JP. They're not going to have to worry so much about where they can potentially even come in just a little bit earlier than maybe you would have thought. It is a 37-lap race with the field window about 14 to 15 laps.
So a quarter cut two stop, when you break it down that way, where you can go 14 to 28 for your stops, or say 15 to 30 with a short run towards the end, hence why some of the drivers are thinking might lean towards the red tires at the end. The interesting call for some is, well, first of all, most of the drivers who were on the red wall tires were involved in the incident, unfortunately for them. But Caleb Bency has elected to stay on the reds despite the caution. Matt Houston's done the same. Jason Brophy had to get some damage fixed, stayed on the reds. An interesting thing, too, is Joe Branch started on the reds. He'd made some repairs. He jumped onto the primary tires with those onto the caution flag. So a few of the drivers thinking about it maybe that way to change things up here while they try and fix the damage, or go to essentially the primary tire earlier now with this trouble, whether forced or not.
You can see that on the left side of your screen, those cars on the black tires, on the red tires as well. Jason Brophy is elected to switch over to the reds to try and get them done. Now, I'm going to have to read the rule book here, because I suspect that maybe what Brophy is doing is try and do a lap under caution and come back in before the caution has finished. But the lights are off on the pace car. I don't think that's going to work out the way that he would have wanted.
Yeah, that is a thought. It was about half a lap ago still. I believe everyone will still catch up to the pace car if they haven't already. But the main thing that pops in mind too is, technically, does that count as the compound swap?
I've just gone and looked. You have to do a full lap. It doesn't clarify whether it's a green flag or a caution lap, so that is an important distinction. But Brophy, with the pace car coming in this time by, will not get the benefit of that. Brian Carey, an end-of-line penalty for the contact that he had with Connor Harrington. He's dropping to the tail end of the field.
Now it's going to get interesting how this start goes, because Van de Sant struggled off the launch. It's going to be important for him to time things up. By the way, with that big one and its trigger up down the back straightaway, Carey, EOO penalty for the restart.
Just mentioned that, JP.
Yes, you're right. Pardon me.
I won't dig into you too hard. So we started with 37. We're down to 28 left on the lead lap. 4 out there. Excuse me, correct myself. 31 on the lead lap. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, the only machine that is yet off the lead lap. The likes of Harrington, Wardlow, Marquez, Larkamp, and Brandt likely have retired from this race. Green flag in hand, and hopefully the one and only caution here at the ButtKicker Grand Prix of the Glen is in our rear view mirrors. It's a nice start at the front. It's much more chaotic further back as Chris Fowler, I think, gets swarmed by the likes of Tyler Graf, Barrett Rolfe, and maybe even Andrew Kinsella. Working up the hill again, Alexander Van der Sant, not on the push to pass, but everyone around him is, and that is an important thing to watch. Van der Sant has to defend as Ryan Otis closes.
Van de Sant already under attack from Ryan Otis. We've seen how quick he can be at Watkins Glen in the past. Looking strong from the get-go. Adam Blocker on the attack, though, to the inside.
Van der Sant should be able to hold off that momentum from Blocker's #1 machine. Again, Blocker racing from Jim Herrick's home, so that is good to see the community of the Lionheart IndyCar Series helping out their fellow competitors. Jim Herrick, a race winner now in the Lionheart Retro Series after winning in our Triple Crown race at Pocono. Lionel Kalisto, Paul Jenkins side by side. Remember, Kalisto had an end-of-line penalty. He's already up to 21st and a very impressive road course racer. He holds off Paul Jenkins.
Now, for some of these drivers, the aggression levels, expect them to be very high, knowing the differences in some, but you also have to be smart with that aggression. You can't just dive it on in and say, it's my corner from 5 car lanes back. That's how you get an air pile up to come back in. So expect some of the drivers to have to think about and consider the give and take here with the flow of this racetrack. Wait for that prime opportunity that we've seen pop up already in the backstretch.
Be very curious to see what happens with Caleb Bensey's tires. Van der Sant straight back on the offense, gets in front of Ryan Otis, and taking full advantage of this is Phil Krause, who's 1.3 seconds clear, and Van der Sant recognizes the urgency to work his way back closer on the push to pass and trying to work his way forward. Remember, it's a fixed setup series. Drivers don't have to worry about wing angles. We won't be talking about different top-end speeds unless anyone's got some damage. Otis on the button trying to defend from Blocker. Maybe look on the offense on Van der Sant as well. Plenty of action as they work themselves into the outer loop for what will be the 3rd time under green flag conditions. Looks like Bomber's back has been passed by Frazier.
Yeah, Bomber's back, Munsell's dropping back. Barrett Rolfe also went a bit wide going to the 90. Heard it was involving some side-by-side. He's dropped 2 spots already this lap. Some of the drivers from Ascari not having the prettiest of runs to begin. Bomber's back for the bright side for the team. Still inside that top 8 from the get-go. But several drivers who have shown some good pace in the road courses this season right behind. Malechka, Pinheiro, expect both of them to try and make some passes soon based on the tempo we've seen from them this year.
Bit surprised that Pinheiro qualified down in 13th, but you win some, you lose some. Matt Taylor has worked his way onto the black mark primary tires. I didn't catch what he started on, if I'm being honest, but after being on pit road to get this race underway, he's up in 22nd. Yes, he's down 17 positions, but it very much could be a much different scenario for the MadWorks Motorsports #8 machine. Still leading the way at the front is Phil Krause as Alexander Van der Sant tries to close that gap to within 1 second. He's still technically within the drafting range, but very much, on the outskirts of it.
Yeah, for Van der Sant, he needs a mistake from Krause to potentially try and keep that draft. Right now, Krause is about a 10th or 2 quicker going to the boot in particular, and that's the toughest thing, right? Because if you have someone who's up at the head of the pack in the clean air, better in the technical corners, in the braking zones, that is so much more difficult for you in regards to that air wash to try and maintain that pace. By the way, to touch upon the Taylor storyline, caution was big for him because of that issue off the grid. He didn't pit during the caution, keep in mind, as we see some of the battling.
Bensey on those red tires has got to know they're going to give up the ghost in short order here. Already working lap 6 of our race here today. Let's grab a look at what happened to Barrett Rolfe. JP mentioned this earlier, and it was just miscommunication. He wasn't necessarily side by side, but Caleb Bensey moving back under the brakes. Get another look at it, maybe on board with Barrett Rolfe here. You can see just doesn't realize that Bensey's going to try and move across. I saw this earlier today in the VCO Esports Racing League, and yep, that is unfortunate for Rolfe. He's now dropped down 2 positions as a result of that, sits in 16th spot.
Not only that, he's lost the draft to 15th by more than a second plus as a result of some of that track position lost. Not what Rolfe would have wanted to have, where he was already up 6 spots before that trouble spot. But here's the tough thing too, right? If you move under braking, you risk the contact. While these drivers zip the way around, Van der Sant has been able to pick up the time a little bit. A bit better it seems now that he's got some flow together. He's picked up a few tenths this past lap and a half.
It's about 2 tenths quicker than Krause last time by, and that's why he is now within 7.5 odd tenths of your race leader as Krause. Look at that great camera shot as they run themselves on the run down into the chute. Enter into that boot section, which is so much fun, so tricky to get things right as well. Will we see anyone try and do something slightly different on the strategy? Mitchell Riggs boxes out Matt Houston, and now Houston will lose a spot to Lionel Kalisto as well. There's a car on the red mark, alternate tires. That's having to be very, very aggressive. Ooh, there was almost contact there. Matt Houston missing the apex.
Lots of mistakes popping up, it seems. Houston playing massive defense, Our tempers flaring out just behind them. You've seen some of the art battles amongst the racetrack. Rossonini back there, all about to come out of the boot as well. And Yarrow, he's in the middle of a hornet's nest and too much curve.
Very good that he didn't spin that car around. Yes, he'll be freight trained and lose 3 positions in the blink of an eye, but that could have been much, much worse for the number 56 car. Lost about 1.5, and now, in fact, we'll see Tyler Graf close from behind him. Matt Taylor's had a trip off to the grass. It looks like it was through the penultimate corner, but again, he's on a recovery drive anyway. It's not too bad. Paul Jenkins looking down his inside as they dive down into the 90 once more. Deep under the brakes goes that Madworks Motorsports car. Will hold on to the spot for now. Now Tyler Graf, car control shown. Fantastic save there. Tyler Graf slow up through the hill. I wonder if he's got damage.
I think that might have been involving something a corner before that, or June in the 90. Some apologies went over the radio from the 59, who's had no front wing for a moment. Kraus may have hit him in the braking zone. That might have disrupted something in the rear end for the 98.
Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, well, and he definitely gets clipped, and Graf's machine clearly is crabbing significantly. You can see him having issues with the outer loop as well. Just watch here as he works up the hill. Not much that he could really do. That is a very unfortunate circumstance. Let's get one more look at it if we can, and maybe look from up above on the run down. Yeah, it's just Kraus running into the back, and that would have made some significant inroads into that back suspension part of that car. Tyler Graf very much limping that car around.
Yeah, seen even with the first part of the replays there that the rear wing moved a good 6 inches to about a foot in from how big the contact was. That massive crunch. Big time trouble for Graf. That's a 24-second pit stop for the wing change for the rear end of the car. Looking at some of the art battling though, remember Taylor's recoveries? Well, he uses a little bit of those new track limits to try and battle it out for position.
I've seen worse. At least it's now tarmac on the outside of that corner. On the push to pass, many drivers. Ryan Otis, Adam Blocker, both trying to use it to try and hold on to third and fight for third, as it were. Blocker in that draft, going back and forth. That's going to be a nice move if he can get it done. He's just a little bit too far back. We'll slot back into line for now. He has a 1 push-to-pass advantage over that car that he's fighting with. Further back, Chris Fowler still embroiled with a fight with Caleb Benzie, who's gotten in front of him for 11th position. Those red wall tires holding on quite nicely for the number 11 car that sits third in the rookie standings.
Yeah, good drive so far for Benzie. The caution may have helped him a little bit with the strategy. And the amazing thing with Benzie is the fall-off hasn't been as bad as I think as projected to start off. About 1 second now is that fall-off rate for the number 29. But the cautions have absolutely helped him. And it's also helped some of the competitors he's been trying to pass by in the primaries. Involved in the massive one down the back straightaway to start the race. So for Benzie, if he can maintain the track position, he might be in the conversation for the top 10.
Matt Houston now, though, starting to slide backwards. Team race first teammate, of course, to Benzie. Those red tires, you can see he slipped behind Kalisto about 10 car lengths now. Matt Taylor next in line to try and work his way forward. So, 9 laps done, working lap 10 of this 37-lap affair. We do have confirmation that it was not a race control thrown caution, but the iRacing caution system is what triggered the caution here. Jason Brophy, another trip down a pit lane, I think, trying to get those red tires off the car as soon as possible.
And the interesting thing is, Brophy put those tires on during the caution flag. That was what you were discussing earlier on, to where could he do that? Remember, Joe Branch is in the same conversation for the vice versa tire situation. There's a lot to think about and process at this point for some of the drivers, where they may have to look in those gray areas to see what they can do here. All while Blocker tries to keep up with Van de Sande, still top 3.
Blocker has gotten in front of Ryan Otis on that run up the hill the last time by. We jump on board with the King of Chins, who's back. He's running part-time this year. Good to see him back on the road course. His work schedule not playing fair to him, I think it is fair to say, as he works himself back onto the regular portion of Watkins Glen. Very tricky corner up the hill, slightly off camber at the very apex of it. Always tries to push you wide and spin that car around as you transfer the weight back onto the rear tires. You get onto the power. But Joshua Chin, look at him, how close he runs to the wall. This group of third on back now, 1.2 back from Alexander Van de Sande, who's sitting great in second position. Matthias Kraus into pit lane as well. I'm not sure if that's for damage or if that was potentially just a penalty handed down by race control. But you can see again, so many drivers burning through their push to passes in the early stage of the race. The sense I'm getting, track position, very, very important. Here comes the charge from Joshua Chin, tucks to the inside, nice and easy, uses the 70 horsepower additional power that he's got up the hill. Chin up to 4th spot.
There's that bottom line coming in towards the outer loop, being so dominant as we discussed coming in. But it's, as we've seen, especially in the road courses in the series, to be able to compete up in the front and not have to basically put on a superhero-like drive. You need to start up front to make things easier for yourself. Be able to be in position, especially when it comes to overall time to the race leader, to try and strategize things up. Have a chance to battle it out. Say you're in 15th, it's a tough way to catch things up from 12 seconds back per se from Kraus, especially if you're, say, looking to fight for that 15th, like your Riggs, who's up that 13 so far, or Kalisto, who had the EOL coming into tonight, who's up 18 in the back of the pack.
Pinheiro trying to go on the offense, but now has to defend as Barrett Rolfe in the Ascari Autosport 33 will look to his inside, side by side through the penultimate corner. Not really the wisest move, and Pinheiro realizes that and will back out of it for now. A bit of a trolley train had been forming behind Mitchell Riggs, but by virtue of all of this, it's really closed the gap up. Caleb Bensi will become the next car down onto pit lane. We are within that window where you come down, you only need those that extra stop from here, I would think, although I don't trust my math, I'm going to be honest. It's been a very long day, so really do not believe anything I say. Matt Hewson also down to pit lane. Half a second for the race lead. Alexander Van der Sant's on the charge.
Well, the math is sound, keep in mind, if the projections come to be, where you can stretch it out towards a 13 to 26, or say a 14 and 28 to split things up fairly evenly, set things up to minimize that time of the reds for those who start on the primary tires. So that equation does come into the logic, so you can still trust what that says, Arjuna. Keep in mind, if you're amongst some of the cars fighting it out here, you have to think about how this could play out strategy-wise, but also, have you been saving that extra touch bit of fuel, if you've been able to be able to go that extra lap to minimize the time on the reds at the end?
Bombers back and Malechka very close to bumping with each other as they work through. Aaron Morgan in that wonderful 24 car behind will take full advantage of that. Now that is an opportunistic pass. That is where you recognize that there's an opportunity to be had. And Aaron Morgan now up 5 positions inside to the top 9. Great move there from the 24 machine.
Yeah, the Rainbow Warriors paint scheme absolutely looking shining and looking to charge his head brightly to the pack. Remember, Aaron Morgan did not have fun at Silverstone, to put it politely. And he's someone, remember, who's always very quick on the road courses as the past 2 years. Looking solid so far, up 6. Added a little bit of a change to the map. Seems to look more like raindrops on the side. While Joshua Chin looks to try and drop blocker on the top 3 and does.
Nice and easily towed up the hill. Not even using the push to pass, I do believe. That car sails its way on by. Left side of the screen, you can see the push to pass usages so far. It's a 60 to 70 horsepower spurt. You get 10 usages of that. You ration it over the course of the race. You can see on the left side that most drivers inside of the top 5 being rather patient. Adam Frazier, one of the more impatient. He's already down to 6, having burned through 4 of them. Bit of side-by-side. Pinheiro sees Mitchell Riggs in front, and Kinsella trying to have a look down low.
Kinsella just trying to pace himself. A lot of work done, as we've talked about in the past, when it comes to Andrew in this series. And right now, he's been having a big-time fight to try and sort himself out here. Seems things are not looking great in terms of the road courses qualifying-wise for Kinsella, but the bright side for Andrew has been he's been able to build up speed, it seems, by mid-race. He's been good when the track's rubbered in, especially with the mountain to lap put in around the circuit, and as the conditions for the weather change, and especially when they get cooler, it seems.
On board with Lionel Kalisto, end-of-line penalty up to 16th spot. Josh Chin on the button trying to close to Phil Kraus and to Alexander Van der Sant at the front of the field as we etch our way closer and closer to the halfway marker of the race. Kalisto using plenty of curb through the 90 up the hill. He charges. Kinsella's on the button trying to get on past Pinheiro. Now Kalisto's got a great view of the action. Remember, we are running the classic boot configuration here at Watkins Glen. In about 100 meters time, they'd be jinking to the right for the bus stop. We're not doing that today. Kinsella just sails on past on the extra 200, 300 meters that they have into the outer loop.
Depending on how things fare out, keep in mind, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few drivers try and lick the stamp and send it to the inside towards the outer loop. But the tough part is, keep in mind, especially with the track and the amount of speed you're expected to project and send your way into that corner, you go too hard and too aggressive, you send yourself to the point where you knock over the mailbox instead of putting it inside the mailbox. You want to have that fine art of being able to put it in the slot, to be able to complete the move. You don't want to send it too hard to where you knock over the whole box. You also don't want to go too soft where you end up having it bounce off the edge of the front lip of the mailbox and just falls on the ground.
Remember as well, with the caution that we had, it will extend the window in this first portion of the race. It means those red marked tires, maybe there's an opportunity to minimize the amount of time that you spend on them, save them till the end of the race when the temperatures drop as well. Alexander Van der Sande on the climb up the hill, the 30 meters from the bottom of the track to the top is on the button, but so is Phil Kraus. Kraus waited a little bit longer though, gives the opportunity for Van der Sande to have a look down to the inside as they sweep themselves into the outer loop. Now the inside here will give you the outside of the chute. It's not done and dusted. This battle will continue to go on. Kraus has the preferred line. Van der Sande not content to try and leave him without a fight, but Kraus holds on.
Exactly what I just talked about, Arjuna. You end up going a little too soft on that send to where you don't clear, for example, for the outer loop. You end up having it drop up back on the floor and it drops you back to second. Now for Van der Sande, he's opened up the possibilities for what Kraus is to expect there. He showed his hand early on here, right before the pit window's projection, and I believe that's going to be critical for when they try and peel off to the lane with drivers expected to peel in this time.
Remember, it will open up though with a couple of laps under caution that we had. Maybe one, maybe 2 laps more. I think it's more realistic, even with caution map 8 being able to save you some fuel, that you'll see drivers. There we go. I'll correct myself. Blocker, as I expected, will stay out there. The rest of the field will peel on in.
That's to be expected absolutely with Blocker. He's found the magic fuel-saving tree at every single track, it seems, whenever it goes left and right. But the thing with Van der Sande send to the pit lane, it was very strong, right to the rear wing of Kraus. Fowler picked up a speeding penalty on the entry, keep in mind. They're nearly making contact for the race leaders through that lane.
Not the first time that we've seen cars have speeding penalties. A retro series it happened as well, but there, they don't have speed limiters. Clumsy mistake, if I can put it mildly. Race off a pit road, and it's a swap around for the lead. Alexander Van der Sande will jump to the front of the field. Both drivers are staying on the primary compound. They'll switch to the alternate red mark tire in the final stint of this race.
And Van der Sande nailed that pit stop sequence to a T. 4 tenths quicker in the box, 8 tenths quicker in the lane, and now that puts Kraus on the offensive as a result. Can Van der Sande try and hold on? Because we've seen how good he's been on some of the speedways. He's been quick on the road course in official action. Is this the day he breaks through in Lionheart competition for a win on a road course?
Van der Sande and Chin use the push to pass to try and build up the speed. Remember, it will take a lap or 2 for the tires to get back into that optimal window. We've talked plenty about the track conditions. We haven't shown you them though. 28 degrees in the air, 41 down on the track. Now you may say, oh, that's not that warm. We've seen warmer in Watkins Glen. I've seen 65, 70 degrees Celsius in previous endurance races here. But 41 degrees with that red mark alternate tires, my word, you will want to get off them as quickly as possible. Adam Blocker onto pit road.
Good fuel saving from Blocker. Taylor, remember, didn't come down, also was able to save in the midst of the pack. Taylor picked up a solid amount of time, keep in mind, right before his stop compared to the rest of the pack. Interestingly though, Joe Brancho likes to come on in as well. He had gone for a tire compound change and a fuel top off during the caution flag period. So an interesting call there.
Blocker still in pit road. Now what has happened here? Adam Blocker has sped on pit lane.
Oh!
Now, another uncharacteristic mistake for Adam Blocker in a season that really couldn't have got much worse.
He really tried to send it in, looking towards the mark. The pit speed, 40 miles per hour here today. He was under the 40 at the old cone. Then he gassed it up a second time, I believe, Arjuna.
I know what this is. It's the unfamiliarity with the rig that he's racing in. It's so easy to do. You've got a new steering wheel in front of you. You don't know what the pit lane limiter button is. And unfortunately for Adam Blocker, that is a mistake that will haunt him. It was looking like a very good haul of points coming his way. Take a look at the RaceBot TV replay. Nice and tidy on the entry, but watch the rev lights here. Don't come on. then speeds up, slows down, speeds up. He's always just trying to figure out what is going on, and that is why Adam Blocker will drop down to 26th position.
And that's a thing you have to think, Arjuna. You need to make sure of before you start the race. But here's the tough thing. It's the muscle memory, too, that factors in, where you're so used to it being this button. When it becomes that button instead, you accidentally hit the wrong button. And you see, I think, some of the ramifications there. Blocker, 26th spot because of the speeding penalty, 45 seconds behind. No penalty, he would have been still in the contention for the top 3, if not with Krell still.
Team Championship, though, looking somewhat good as we watch 2 battles going on. The battle for 5th, as well as the battle for the lead. Let's give a shout out to Alexis Newsom, not just great in qualifying, but up there in 5th position. When she debuted in this series last year at Silverstone, I think it's fair to say she struggled. She struggled as most of the rookies did in that race. However, in a track which is very much more like an oval in some ways, it's all about throwing it into the corner, carrying the speed, maintaining the momentum. I am impressed by what the factory-backed machine has. We'll see if it can hold on as we work our way through the course of the race. Aaron Morgan up to 6th position.
Right, in terms of that improvement of the road courses, Newsom shown a fair bit of speed improvement on them throughout the campaign. Nashville was second, keep in mind. Very quick that race. Kentucky second place as well. Silverstone stayed out of the trouble to finish in 12th at the track she made the debut in. But many of these drivers still trying to sort themselves out. Some of them looking for career win number 1 in the series, others looking for career best, all while the fights continue.
It's been a thrilling 18 opening laps of this ButtKicker Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. The run to the checkered flag is coming up next. It's a 3-way fight. Joshua Chin closing lap after lap. Alexander leads the way in upstate New York.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
welcome back to RaceBot TV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. We're in upstate New York for the ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins, Glen, where Alexander Van der Sant leads the way in what has been a dramatic race, to say the very least. A caution on lap number 1 took out 7 different machines. From there, it's been a cornucopia of excitement, and we're delighted to have you along for the ride. Alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined by the one and only Justin Prince. And Justin, Phil Kraus is putting on the pressure, but as it stands right now, Alexander Van der Sant is soaking it up like a sponge.
So far, so good for Van der Sant. Remember, he's been somebody who's been able to execute strategies to a T in the past in Lionheart competition in the 96. It will be a tough cookie to crack when it comes to Kraus. And when it comes to Kraus, though, we've seen how much he's been able to try and push in the past, and how he's been able to try things differently and make it work to an extent in the past. This has been one of his biggest tests of the entire campaign on the road courses.
Kraus looking for 5 in a row to tie the record that Adam Blocker set last year in 2021. Van der Sant searching for his first career victory. Joshua Chin at one point was closing, but the gap has stabilized. The gap, if anything, has slightly increased. It might be a 2-horse fight here for the win in Watkins Glen. A fight going on as well for 16th position. By no means have we been just focused up front. There has been so much action, it has been hard to track. Adriano Pinheiro loses a spot to Matt Taylor. The recovery drive from the MadWorks Motorsports machine has been something to behold.
It absolutely has been, especially with the technical issue from the get-go and the contact for the get-go. Already up to 14th, still in the primary tire, looking like he's going to be on the alternate tires at the end of the race. And for Taylor, keep in mind, he's been nearly matching the pace of the race leaders. 127.6 last time by. The leaders in the 127.3s for reference. Taylor's been quick, to the point where if he was avoiding that trouble, he'd likely be in the podium spots right now. He's that quick.
I've been very impressed by him, as also impressed by Alexis Newsom, who does lose a place to Aaron Morgan, but this is a career best road course finish for Newsom if things hold as they are. Very much an oval specialist, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that she's so fast on the ovals that she's got some catching up to do to get that quick on the road courses as well. Of course, Newsom, one of many in this field that are focusing on the 13th running of the iRacing Indianapolis 500, which is coming up this weekend. Qualifying has been underway since this past Monday, and it's a grind, it's a slog. Newsom, one of the 6 or 7 Team i5G machines that is looking to work their way towards the feature race, which is this Saturday at 5 p.m. UTC, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, live on RaceBot TV. Join Will Vincent, myself, as well as Lewis McLeod, as we get set for what should be another historic day of racing at the Brickyard. We're, of course, coming off the iRacing Fixed 500, where poor Alexander Van der Sant lost out on the final lap of the race. Casey Kerwin with a mighty move in the closing couple of corners. Van der Sant not too thrilled that iRacing featured the finish on their social media, but I can tell you what, that the Fixed 500 is one thing. He'll be delighted to win today, but last weekend was all about setting up for this coming weekend. If there's any race that you want to win, it's a race that's got 13 years of history behind it.
And that's in regards to the sim, absolutely, because of how much work it takes to get there, how much prestige there is in the open wheel community to win when it comes to winning at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's a tradition like none other for a reason, with so many families who make their way to the facility, all becoming one by the time the green flag flies, to see who can make history. And that's going to be exciting to watch once again this weekend, to see which teams have brought their A game, who's been able to prepare well enough, and who will execute when the bright lights are on and when you need to perform to be able to make history.
Grab a look at a RaceBot TV replay as Brian Carey will lose not 1, but 2 positions in the space of just that straightaway. The run down into the outer loop. His teammate Andrew Kinsella will sail on past, and Matt Taylor, we talked about his recovery. That is a bold send around the outside, albeit slightly assisted by Brian Carey in that Power Slide Motorsports machine. Still watching this battle for 5th on back with a big old gap. They are 5.5 odd seconds behind Ryan Otis, who is very much in some no man's land, as is Joshua Chin. The fight for the final step of the podium might be one to watch as we etch our way closer to the final pit stop window of the race. Most of these drivers, JP, have to switch over to that red mark alternate tire compound, the one that we don't expect to last very long, and that's why you'd expect these cars to go until their tanks are dry.
Seeing those expectations being realized by some, Jason Brophy just peeled in for reference. That window is now within that mark to make it to the end on gas based on the projections. But as we've talked about in the past in this series, the further you go, the less fuel you likely need to put in the tank. The lighter the car with the less fuel in it, the faster you go. That will be a major mindset. Van der Sant trying to use the traffic to break things up a bit. Try to use Tyler Graff as a pick to try and break a bit of the draft. I wasn't sure how that would play out until the last moment there. Didn't really help though.
Caleb Bensey's now gotten in front of Lionel Kalisto. Bensey started on the red mark tire, so he'll be sticking on that alternate compound tire to the end of the race. Bombers back Carey, as well as Riggs and Graff, the only cars out on track with that red mark alternate tires. Pinheiro gets past Carey, and maybe this explains the slide backwards from Brian Carey. The fact that he's got those alternate tires on his car, he's been out there for 8 laps. The expected crossover point when those black tires start to become the preferred compound in terms of pace has been indicated as between maybe 4-5 laps, and that's why Bombers back will come down to pit lane very early in the cycle. Carey 2.
And Bensey indeed as well. So some of those drivers electing to make things a bit more simpler with those alternate tires, get them off, prevent the fall off, because we've talked about this a bit in the past. To be able to limit that fall off, you need to be really precise on your movements. You need to have that preparation. You need to be pixel perfect around the track. And for some of the drivers in the mid-pack, their fall off bigger than some of those towards the front, as we've seen throughout the season. 1.5 seconds, the fall off, compared to what the primaries are currently turning. The fastest lap for the Reds, mind you, is only 0.3 quicker from some of those drivers on that set.
Would expect the fastest laps to be set by cars pitting late and moving to the red tires. Look how wide they run. That is perfectly acceptable for those wondering. Track limit's not an issue at that point of the track. Adam Blocker currently has the fastest lap with a 26.599 as he tries to recover from his speeding penalty incurred in our first cycle of green flag pit stops. Coming to 12 laps to go. Does anyone decide to come on in? They've been out on track for 9 laps so far. Hypothetically, they can go another 5 or 6.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go another 3-2-6. Maybe switch things up, see if the undercut plays a bit of a pattern. But we've seen how big some of the traffic can be down that straightaway. But right now, I think the main thing too is, for Kraus, it's a cat and mouse game. Keep the draft, maintain it, wait in the wings, wait to see how things break out. If you see an opportunity, maybe go for it. He's got a chance to do it without the push to pass.
Great run out of the 90 when sweep to the outside line. Now Van der Sant tried to go this route to get past for the race lead, but he's able to carry enough speed, cut the nose off of that number 19. Van der Sant then compromised down the hill through the chute because Kraus had his nose to the inside and forces Van der Sant to continue being defensive. The more they fight, the closer Chin might get. Kraus very wide all the way up into the marbles. Van der Sant holds on. You do look at the lap times, 26.9 last time around for Phil Kraus, only 0.3 slower than his fastest lap. The fall off on the primary tires is not significant. The undercut would be a bold strategy. You'd pay the price at the end of the race.
Especially, as we talked about, with those abilities the competitors have been able to have up at the very front to minimize that fall off. Absolutely. They have been dialed in. It's going to be interesting if we see a peel off this time with how aggressive things were. And yes, you're right. Believe Newsom may have had a problem.
Yeah, Alexis Newsom, a technical problem will drop her down. Oh, no, there she goes. She's back. That's one of those things with iRacing sometimes. You never know what's going to happen. It's scary for those in front and behind you as well. They don't know where your car's going to be. Newsom will hold on to 7th spot.
That's a way to scare your spotter, too. And Jacob Oster, if you're watching longer than lose the car, it's like, okay, you're in the middle of the pack. I have no idea where you are. Good luck. Good luck. Please come back. Please come back. There you are. And battle for the lead.
Looks like Kraus will try again to the outside, again through the outer loop. It is again going to be Van der Sant that can run himself and try and hold on. Kraus with a lot more momentum down the hill this time around. To the inside looks the private label Team Hype driver, and he's back to the front of the field. 2 drivers have controlled the pace of this race. Does Van der Sant tuck in and try and do it in the pit stop cycle again?
There has to be the possibility now because he couldn't keep the defense up. Kraus has just been able to time things up just precisely right for the S's to get the draft. Keep an eye on that entry mark. Lap 12 this time around. Expect them, if not this time, probably the next time around. And it looks like Van de Sande really struggling with the aero launch on that send coming out of the boot.
I think he turned in just a little bit too early as well. That really did compromise him quite significantly as they rode into that third to final corner here at Watkins Glen. The gap opens up to 0.4 of a second. Now Phil Kraus has a push to pass advantage. He's got 2 more than Van de Sande has behind. From here, Kraus could use them in all but 3 of the laps left in this race as we tick ourselves to 10 laps to go. I think Phil Kraus back in the driver's seat.
He absolutely is, because he's been very quick and clean there in the boot. And he's been just in that patience game for much of this run, all the way up to a few moments ago. But he already knows, too, the draft was a huge part of that run for Van de Sande with no push to passes used by him. At this point, you have to keep that in mind if you're the 19. Be ready to be on that button after your pit stops.
I think they're all just trying to give themselves a good run out of the 90 to have a look down into the outer loop, and that's now going to be the crucial thing for Van de Sande, who seems to be trying to turn it early to get some clean air onto the nose of that car. We'll see if that holds true, if that's maybe just the preferred line of Van de Sande. But if there are 2 different approaches, these 2 drivers very equally matched on pace, and even if Van de Sande doesn't come out on top in this race, JP, he will walk away with the confidence that comes with going wheel to wheel, foot to foot, pedal to the metal against someone like Phil Kraus.
You see that difference? Same line taken for Van de Sande yet again. He is really struggling once he gets within that 2-3 car length difference to the rear wing of Kraus in the middle of the exit of the boot. Now we'll see if they come down. Looks like they're going to the very edge of the fuel tanks. About 8 to go when they likely have to come in. Aaron Morgan is already saying he'll come in from 5th. Chin is in as well.
Otis boxes 2, so those 2 out front. We'll see what the undercut might look like. A good indication is about to be given to us as the field starts to streak on, and Frazier will stay out, as will Newsom and Malechka. So a bit of a split there with Chin, Otis, Morgan, and even Kalisto all down onto pit road. Van de Sande got a great run out of turn 1, and this time it's Kraus that goes on the defense. To the inside goes the pink and black machine. To the outside goes the white and purple. It's side by side once more. Van de Sande a nose in front as they sweep through the main part of the corner. It's deja vu. It's Van de Sande that gets on through.
And Kraus really did not want to let that go for a moment. He was really pitch hard to the right, trying to turn that car to keep it off the side pod of Van de Sande. But this is the swap we were potentially expecting to see if you open up the door with the draft. See that swap back. Now that timing for the pit stop and making sure you don't speed, also important. And here's the big question. Can Van de Sande and or Kraus perform better on the alternate tire than their counterpart? That's going to be the biggest part of all this, to be able to win this race now.
And again, it was a pass done without the assistance of the push to pass. Does that mean that on the final lap of the race, coming to the 1 to go, to the white flag, do you want to be in second? My indication is probably not. Here they come to pit road. Looks like both of them boxing. Van de Sande committed once more, and if he can execute on pit lane this time by, Van de Sande might even build up a bigger buffer through the course of the pit cycle.
And remember, it was Van de Sande who was up to 0.8 of a second quicker in the pit box and the lane of itself last time. Frazier, Malechka, Newsom, as expected, also coming on in. Watch that peel in. This will be important. It is a bit of a downhill incline. Keep in mind to the 90. That will impact some of the braking. And as expected, alternate tires jumping on to be able to make that tire swap. Van de Sande quicker. Kraus again, half a second slower in the box. 0.7 in the lane.
And it's a big gap that's opened up. I think Kraus might even get jumped by Josh Chin if he's not careful. 1.7 seconds the delta, and Van de Sande knows he's got to scamper for the hills as he gets on the button. Kraus electing to save it. He'll be able to use 1 push to pass for every single lap we've got left in this race as they come across the stripe one more time. Only 1.4 splits Kraus and Chin as well. Van de Sande has got the race in his control.
Can he maintain that control is the most critical part, because we've seen how good Kraus can be once you get a few laps in. The top thing, remember, has been the cold tires with Kraus and his problems. Some of the air drivers at Long Beach earlier this year. Here's a look at the battle for 5th. Adam Blocker, remember, still needs to pit. He's not making it easy, though, for some of the drivers who have already pit, though.
Now expect him to come down very late and for a very short stop. Might just take as little fuel as possible. We'll have to switch compounds of tires, though. He's not going to be able to try something bold and take a no-tire stop for the end of this race, but it's a cornucopia of action. It's a hornet's nest for about 5th on back, where Aaron Morgan has stretched his legs very slightly. Another driver with an impressive showing has been Adam Frazier in that number 12 machine. Plenty of excitement to look at in the mid-pack of this field, but it's all out front where the fight for the lead is raging on. Down to 1.6 at the line. We'll watch the lap times. Joshua Chin with a 25.603 will take the fastest lap of the race. The Flyers are going to come quick and fast. Phil Krause onto the button.
Not a surprise to see that pace pick up. Blocker of note has come on in. Only Robert Wetchka the third having to come in again. He had a wing change during this stop, and he's had to peel in a second time, Arjuna 91.
Not sure what's happened to the red and white machine, but that is frustrating, I am sure, for Robert Malechka in that number 91 machine. Was on for a good finish of his own, and a season which has really struggled to get underway in many regards continues to be a bit on the back foot. 1.1 the gap at the front. Van der Sat is going to feel the pressure next time by. Phil Krause flying on the red alternate tires.
What did I say? This is something we've seen from Krause a few times throughout the season. You give him the alternate tires, he can blister quick laps on the alternate tires. Very curious what the first Flyers looked like, with Van der Sat already losing 6/10 this lap alone. Make it 7/10. Krause is already back in drafting distance with just a lap of half of pushing.
I'm also curious where you want to be using that push-to-pass. Left side of the screen, you can see all but Bensi and Bommersbach are on the alternate tires within the top 14. Brian Carey, then the next car, who is on the primary black stripe tires. Under a second is the gap, and Phil Krause is flying a 25.282. The fall off, though, is something to watch. Joshua Chin last time by a 3.54. You are really not going to make these tires last for very long. I think if Van der Sat can hold off the charge here with Phil Krause on the push to pass, he may still have a good chance to control the tempo and the pace of this race. Krause too far back. Van der Sat holds on. 6 laps to go.
With 5 to go, I think that's where it starts to get really intense, because Krause, if he can maintain this 0.3 of a second gap up to the S's again, we've seen how quickly the driver behind, with just the draft in itself, not just with the push to pass, can zip on by. You need to be smart at this point if you're in that fight. Speaking of fights, Taylor is up to 10th after his issues early. He's nearly back to his qualifying spot.
I am ultra impressed by the fortitude and determination of that MadWorks Motorsports machine. This is a drive that he might not want to remember, but we will remember for a very long time. From 5th on the grid, started then after that on pit road. A long, long way to go. Battle for the lead comes to the line. 5 to go here in upstate New York. It's Alexander Van der Sat with a 1 push-to-pass deficit to Phil Krause, and you'd have to assume if the move is forthcoming, it's forthcoming this time by. A good run out of the 90 might be all that Alexander Van der Sat can hope on to try and fend off that charge. On the button is Phil Krause.
Already 3/10 down to 2/10. Van der Sat's not using the button though. He's banking them a little bit more. Krause has the advantage.
Look how easily he'll pop out and take the race lead away from Van der Sat. 4.5 odd laps to go. Van der Sat's going to have a look to the inside. Can't commit, not close enough. More speed for the number 19. Krause back to the point.
Now how does Van der Sat try and counter that the next time around? All this is while behind them, Morgan, who was trying to break the trap so much before his stops, he's in a flurry of battles.
Newsom will try and look around the outside. That's washing up and a bit aggressively from Aaron Morgan's 24 machine, as that factory-backed car will hold station for the time being. If Van der Sat can stay close, which is he is doing through the infield, don't count him out. They are equal on push-to-passes. It will all be about the draft right now. Coming to 4 to go. I still don't know if you want to lead with 1 lap to go.
Yeah, this is a very tough call right here, because with this back straightaway, there were the thoughts of, would this be a passing chance to be able to get fully completed? And the answer has turned out to be absolutely yes, to where it's the prime passing opportunity for everyone, and that's where they've been just trying to position themselves for. There's not been too many mistakes in some of the R sections, but that back straightaway, if you can hold on towards that mark, it's so critical to be able to play defense, try and force the drivers you're trying to battle with to be side by side outside, and Kraus knows this with the defense.
Alexander Van der Sande didn't get on the button as early as Phil Kraus. We've seen that before, but it doesn't pay dividends. This is where you're downloading the data, you're understanding what exit do I need to get, how aggressive do I have to be, when do I hit the push to pass. So many variables to be thinking about in this fight for the lead. Still plenty of fighting though with Newsom and Morgan side by side. Fraser's been able to skip away very slightly as the number 12 machine now has a 1.1 second advantage again side by side with Newsom and Morgan, but Morgan will hold on here. There's plenty of fighting. We see Caleb Benzie and Matt Taylor duking it out as well. Bombers back and Pinheiro right behind them. Bombers back and Benzie, you got to remember, JP, are on the black primary tire.
The interesting thing when it comes to them, Benzie is matching the lap times even with the battling with Taylor currently as well, though at the same time, compare that to Bombers back, who's had a little more breathing space. His pace right now 7/10 off that of Pinheiro last time. All that with 3 laps to go. The race leaders keeping it very busy up in the front. Van der Sande has been waiting for the later marks for the push to pass. Does he go a little more aggressive now?
No, again, he'll be a bit more patient. It's a 20-second run time that you get from the push to pass. So think about that. If you're too early on the button, you might run out up the hill. And this time, Van der Sande is a lot closer than he was 1 lap ago. Kraus snaking back and forth. Some will frown on that. Some will say that's fair. All is fair in love and war. To the outside will go Phil Kraus. Look at the send from Van der Sande. Will try and squeeze up the track. They come so close to disaster. Kraus runs himself off the road. Van der Sande back to the point. What a fight we've got. 2.5 laps to go.
This is not over yet either. Kraus absolutely was an inch or 2 away from disaster. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kraus try the same move again we just seen from Van der Sande. Try and go for that send towards that inside, towards the later moment. And I think Kraus also has the thought, does he want to still be that leader for the final time around? That is still very undecided amongst them.
Oh no, Alexis Newsom has crashed down the chute. Sorry to cut you off, JP, but the great day might turn into a slightly disappointing day. Newsom still inside the top 10.
And it was a self-incident. Getting too loose in the middle of the apex, coming through towards laces. That brings the trouble there, but the leaders still fight. Kraus made a similar mistake, albeit a bit more of a bobble than a slide coming out of the heel, and that's put him further back than before.
But it's all about the timing here. Kraus again goes a little bit earlier. Van der Sande holds until basically he's turning into the chute, or rather in towards the S's. 3/10 in closing, the speed differential about 5 kilometers an hour. I think Van der Sande might just be able to fend off here. I wonder if you want to try and defend the outside line rather than the inside. But Van der Sande decides to make contact. Oh, they both hang on to it. Inches from disaster. But Kraus up and out of the groove. 1 second splits the leaders.
That got very dangerous there. Van der Sande seemed to move up a touch bit, but yet Kraus trying to go to the middle of the track. Both of them wanted the middle of the track. How does Kraus respond here? Not a lot of time to gain a full second back. With a lap and a half to go, there's more trouble you've seen in the background.
That was the incident that we had with Alexis Newsom. So, like you said, just made the mistake by herself. She's going to be slightly frustrated, but again, I think plenty of positives to take away from the race. Look from up above as we ride here at Watkins Glen, and we see just how close to disaster these two came. I'm going to say that's a racing incident. I don't think either of them is to blame. Kraus will still be frustrated coming to 1 to go.
That frustration, he's already taken it out on the time in of itself to close up. He's gained half of the time back in 4 or 5 corners. Here we go, final time.
1 to go at the ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins Glen. Alexander Van der Sande is 7/10 clear, and with a tidy run out of the 90, might be able to put Phil Kraus's hopes of 5 wins in a row out of memory. Nice and early on the button for Kraus again. It's Van der Sande that's more restrained, that tries to get the boost of power all the way to the entry to the outer loop. Here comes the snake forming once more. A little bit more restrained from Van der Sande than it was from Kraus a couple of laps ago, but Van der Sande well and truly clear as they swoop down into the outer loop.
All Van der Sande needs to do at this point, minimize any potential bobbles, hold on to the apexes. Don't do that, that was a little bit too wide. Kraus gained a little bit more.
Here they go though, out of push to pass for the both of them. If there's a move forthcoming, it's a move on merit, it's a move emboldened with victory in sight. A couple of corners left to go. Can Alexander Van der Sande hold off the points leader? 1 and 2 in the championship flipped around on the track. 4 corners to go, and Van der Sande has victory in his sight. Nice and tidy through a corner he struggled at in the dirty air. Just has to work his way through 2 more corners. It has taken 8 races for Alexander Van der Sande to become a winner in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, but it does not get sweeter than this. He fends off the dominant force in 2022. Alexander Van der Sande wins the ButtKicker Grand Prix of Watkins Glen.
Unreal is an understatement, to say the least, with how this has played out. 2 of the fastest drivers all day, right on the front row, do it out to the very end. And the emotions, they were very high, to say the very least, throughout that run. But all but came to a head with that battle with about 2 to go. Van der Sande, though, able to close it out to win this one. Pit execution was a critical part of the 96's strategy that put him up of that front group and then some, both stops today.
2 leaders of this race, and I tell you what, even if Alexander Van der Sande had not won this race, the confidence that he would have taken going wheel to wheel with someone like Phil Kraus, it is hard to explain how important that can be. Momentum is so important in a championship fight.
Especially if you want to be able to maintain that. You, first of all, obviously, with momentum, need to start off with that building block. Then you have to build on it, add more blocks to it. Go from having a singular block to multiple blocks to a whole wall of momentum, all the way to a whole house full of momentum. And be able to try and take over some who may have their own houses in certain victory lanes. Van der Sande, he's been able to try and build his own stake in the middle of HyperX victory lane now.
Remember how his career started in 2021. Alexander Van der Sande was so impressive as he climbed his way onto the podium. We thought he might be able to win at Auto Club, 2nd to start off the season, 2nd at Silverstone, and finally in HyperX victory lane, Alexander Van der Sande celebrates a winner in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Some well-deserved donuts. This is the momentum that you want to see heading in to one of the crucial weeks across of the iRacing platform as Van der Sande tries to become a winner in the iRacing Indianapolis 500. What a race that we had. It started off with a caution, it's ended with chaos. A fantastic race, and let's take a look at our SimRace247 race results. Alexander Van der Sande wins by just 0.6 of a second from Phil Kraus. Ultimately a bit of drama in the closing stages, but I'm sure Phil Kraus will not be too frustrated. 4 wins in a row is definitely nothing to be sniffed at, and the stretch of consistency for Phil Kraus rolls on, no lower than 2nd in this 2022 campaign. Joshua Chin will be delighted with a 3rd in that number 93 car, although it doesn't score points for the main private label Team Hype organization. Rhinotis with a quiet but comfortable drive up into 4th. Adam Fraser, Aaron Morgan, 2 cars making a great deal of momentum up through the field to finish 5th and 6th, while Lionel Kalisto in that number 97, an end-of-line penalty, works his way up 30 positions to finish inside the top 7. Caleb Bensi, well, qualifying didn't go his way, down in 22nd. He finishes in 8th, plus 14, while Matt Taylor, after his technical issue at the start of this race, recovers quite nicely to finish inside of the top 10. Kai Bommersbach tried something different on strategy. Unfortunately, did not work out the way that he maybe would have wanted it, but still a good drive from the Ascari Autosports driver to get inside of the top 10. Alexis Newsom showed the road course speed that we were wondering where it was. The 2021 Speedway Series champion will try and carry this momentum forward with plenty more road courses still left in this 2022 season. Adriano Pinheiro behind her, with Andrew Kinsella working himself up from 24th to 13th. Brian Carey, best qualifying in the season. Unfortunately, a drive-through, or rather an end-of-line penalty for an incident that caused the chaos on lap 1, drops him to 14th spot. Alex Guyon and Mitchell Riggs, both drivers up double-digit positions, while Brian Beard finishes in 17th. Jason Brophy in 18th after, again, being someone to try something different on strategy. Matthias Kraus 19th. Adam Blocker with a pit road penalty in the first green flag cycle of pit stops will come across the line in 20th. Was looking good again on the road is Adam Blocker, but this time the result not what he would want. Joe Branch in 21st, while Rob Malechka's behind him in the second of the power slide ignition machines. Paul Jenkins, Chris Lanini, and Tony Schowen through the top 25. Mike Rigney, Chris Fowler, different stories for those two drivers. One gaining 11, one losing 11. That number 20 machine somewhat cursed, it would seem, here today, while Matt Houston and Tyler Graff both finished one lap down. Barrett Rolfe, one of our first retirees before we get to the graveyard of machines. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, AJ Musselman, and many, many more, as well as Connor Harrington, one of the big losers in that lap 1 incident, all having to retire basically on the spot. The Muscleman tried to roll that car back around, but it was not to be. 37 started, just 29 finished. Fastest lap went to Phil Kraus in the closing stages, like we said, on the new red alternate tires, but ultimately second place in the fastest lap. Might have been wanting 5 on the bounce. And with that said, we finish our look at the SimRace247 race results, and we dive our way into the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloudline of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And with that, we join HyperX victory lane with a delighted Alexander Van der Sant. It's his 8th race in the IndyCar series. It's his first victory. You've been strong this year, Alex, but you went toe-to-toe with the man that's been the one to beat in 2022. Talk to us about what it means to finally be a winner.
Man, I'm speechless. Man, that was such a hard race. That's the best I've ever driven to, pretty much mistake-free, almost no incident points, and the racecraft between both of us was awesome. I hope we put on a good show. It was such a fun race. I can't believe I finally got that win.
Well, and I want to ask about the pit stop execution there, because that was what the key thing seemed to be for you, to jump Kraus in the first cycle and then to build a bit of a buffer in the second. What did you have figured out there? Had you saved a little bit more fuel? Because you were quicker in the box both time than the 19 machine.
I was never delayed on fuel, so I think it was just, getting in and then getting out of the box. I know at least for the first stop, we launched, I think, at the same time, but I just had better traction when I was moving, so that was just enough to get ahead of him by pit exit. And second one, definitely getting in, I think was the big thing. I just nailed my marks. I had a clear track in front of me because I had gotten around him that lap, and was able to just focus and just get it perfect.
I still don't know if you wanted to be the car in the lead coming to the white flag. Knowing what you know now, knowing how the race played out, where would you have wanted to be with 1 to go?
Right where I was. I won the race, so it's, I guess I was where I needed to be. The contact on the second to last lap, it's a shame that happened. I would have, he was pitching that entry, I would have done the same exact thing. It happens. We're both cool with it. But but he got. It hurt him more than it hurt me, and so that gave me that buffer for the last lap, and it was just enough to stay ahead. Even the buffer leaving the pits, that allowed me to just take it easy on that out lap and save the tires, so I had a lot more for that last lap, I think, too. It was a lot more stable. The caution helped, too, because we were able to go that extra lap. And, I just was able to execute on that strategy and brought it home.
Bring this momentum forward, of course, to the iRacing Indianapolis 500. Can't wait to see how it goes, Alex. It's been a great week so far. I'm sure more is left on the horizon. Congratulations.
Thanks, Regina.
Alexander Van der Sant, a winner and in HyperX victory lane for the first time, if not the last, in his career. We now join Phil Kraus, whose road to tie Adam Blocker's consecutive win tally might have come up short, but the streak of top 2 finishes at the very least that has started at the beginning of the season continues to roll on. Phil, I'm sure that was a fun race for you. You went toe-to-toe with Van der Sant there.
Oh yeah, it was a really fun race, really difficult race. one of the practice races. I think it was on Tuesday. Like just talking about the race real quick. I tried going down the inside of someone at the carousel, and I just couldn't make it work. So that last overtake that Van de Sande got on me, I was like, all right, I wasn't able to make the inside work when I tried it on someone in the practice race, and so I gave it to him. And in retrospect, obviously that was a mistake, but yeah, it was really fun, really tactical between us. He definitely had me beat in the pit stops. I think he yapped me by like 7, 8 tenths both pit cycles. So I almost lost a draft to him on that last stop. So I was just happy to get back there and at least give him a fight.
It's been a crazy season for you, Phil. I mean, 120 points clear coming into this race with just 6 in the books. I mean, I keep asking you about this run, and I'm going to hopefully keep asking you about it because hopefully it does not end anytime soon. But up next is a trip to Phoenix. What are you thinking about the short ovals?
Phoenix. It's a good track. I've run well there before, but I've never finished well there before. So it's a bit of a curveball. I've only ran there twice in this car, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Should be fun, and we'll have to see what Andrew gives us for a setup, because that's really going to determine the flow of that race there.
What happened in pit road? I do have to ask that, because both times you were a little bit longer in the box than Van de Sande. It also seemed you just weren't getting the launch off as he was able to get. Was that also by virtue of just where your pit box was? You know, the first one in the field, the one that's maybe the most downhill on the run down to the limiter line?
He was just killing me on the launch. He was doing the same thing in Silverstone, so I know it's somewhere I need to improve at, but I just wasn't able to. That last stop, I tried to overcompensate since I entered behind him, and I just spun the rear tires real hard, and I had to be real careful in the outlap so I wouldn't crash. And last few laps, honestly, I thought I was going to crash a few times, because last lap specifically, I think I drifted like 3 or 4 corners in a row just trying to get to him.
It was a fantastic race, Phil. Can't wait to see in a week from now how Phoenix plays out. We'll see you in 7 days' time.
Yep, cheers, Arjuna. Have a good one.
Phil Kraus also inside the top 5 of the iRacing Indianapolis 500 qualifying, so we'll see him this weekend on RaceSpot TV. But a man we didn't see much of, mainly because he was in no man's land and had a rather quiet race after the chaos of lap number 1. Joshua Chin, talk to us about your viewpoint of the utter carnage that emerged on the run into the outer loop.
Well, I wasn't expecting to see a Beyblade in front of me to start the race, but Connor got turned into one, and thankfully was in a spot to miss the wreck. Unfortunately, a lot of guys farther back got caught up in it, but I guess the caution kind of worked out for us to be up there in the top 5 and kind of reset without quite as much of a packed up field, as Alexis had a bad restart on once we got going. But yeah, I wasn't expecting to get third out of this, especially after starting 9th. Just kind of sat there and vibed the whole race, got around Ryan, got around Blocker, and then Blocker had a speeding penalty, and that was pretty much the end of me battling anyone, and just kind of sat there behind Phil and Alex and just came home to third.
Haven't seen much of you this season, obviously because you've been somewhat busy with your work commitments as well. You must be glad at the very least, though, to have missed half the races so far, that when you have come, you've either had speed or you've been involved in incidents. It's basically been one of the 2 options.
Yeah, I think working at Midnight's actually worked out pretty well, because the last 2 races have actually had some speed. Nashville had to start from the back, and kind of had to fight my way up as much as I could and got 11th out of it, but tonight worked out really well. Pace was there. I wasn't quite there with Alex and Phil, but it's if that race was last year, if I run like that, I would have won. But it's a different year, and Phil's on a different level this year. So hopefully he keeps that going and can get the championship for private label team hype.
I'll ask you about this weekend as well. Are we going to see you for the iRacing Indianapolis 500? You're a prior winner of the event. You know just how important that race is to the community.
There are going to be a lot of qualifying attempts tomorrow afternoon, and my Saturday is open, so unless something drastic happens, I'll be there.
It's a grind. We can't wait to see how it goes. Best of luck this weekend, Josh, and hopefully we see you next time out at Phoenix.
I appreciate it, guys.
So that's going to wrap up our post-race interviews. Always great to talk to the teams, to the drivers, and get their understanding of how that race really did play out. We'll grab a look at the schedule. We'll talk about what's up next as we get closer and closer to the halfway marker of this season. 22 races, 7 are now done, and 7 days from now, we go to the desert, Justin Prince.
Phoenix, that will be a very difficult race, obviously, for these competitors. Aero wash, always a major talking point when it comes to the desert. And here's the critical part. How will things play out for the drivers? Remember, the current version of Phoenix recently updated months ago. How will things impact there with some of the changes there? Or will these drivers be able to execute well in that circumstance? A lot to consider for that race, but the major thing's going to be the major traffic management. Can you do it right? Can you get yourself some breathing space?
I do wonder if we're going to have a manual restart zone when it comes to that race, because you are right. There can be some chaos that emerges. Remember, same time, same place, live on RaceBot TV, May 25th, 10:05 p.m. Eastern, 7:05 p.m. Pacific. Join us for pre-race coverage from the desert. With that said, though, it is time to bid you farewell from Watkins Glen. What a race that we just had. And before we go, we'd like to thank all that make this possible, starting with ButtKicker, the title sponsor of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. ButtKicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible. The global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Glen Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make this all possible. To learn more of the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, or to find out about the 3 competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. What a race! Watkins Glen always delivers the goods. The next time the Lionheart IndyCar Series is in action, 7 days from now, for the Jewel in the Desert as we head to the Phoenix Raceway. What a race is on tap for you there. We can't wait to see exactly what is going to happen. For now, though, it is time to bid you farewell. On behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, we thank you for joining us. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, joined by the one, by the only, Justin Prince. My voice is hoarse. I hope you're as excited as we got here in the commentary booth. We'll see you 7 days from now, but for now, we celebrate Alexander Van der Sat, a winner in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.